All right, so today we're really going to get into it. Asia is an economic powerhouse, right?
Oh,
But it also produces a huge amount of global emissions.
yeah. It's a tricky situation.
It is. So that's where DBS comes in. They're a leading financial group in Asia, and their 2024 Sustainability Report just came out. And it's pretty interesting.
It really is. They're trying to deal with all the, difficulties of sustainability in an area that's growing so quickly. The report lays out how they can help to make real change, not just within their company, but across industries and even communities.
So DBS isn't just making their own offices green. They're trying to push for sustainability everywhere.
Right. They've got this sustainability strategy built on three main things.
Okay.
Responsible banking, how they can help clients be more sustainable. Responsible business practices, how they can operate as a company.
Got it.
And impact beyond banking, basically how they can use their resources to do good in the community, going beyond just normal banking.
Okay, I see 3 pillars. But are they actually doing something about it? I mean, what are they really doing?
Oh yeah, they're really putting their money where their mouth is. They've put a massive 89 billion Singapore dollars into sustainable financing. That's a big number, even for Asia's economy.
89 billion. Wow. That's a serious commitment.
It is. And it shows that they're really serious about helping Asia transition to a low-carbon future. And it's not just about the money. Employee engagement at DBS is super high, 91%.
Really?
Yeah. It shows that their own people believe in this mission, It seems like a real culture where everyone feels like they can contribute to something bigger.
That makes sense. Employees are often the loudest voices pushing for change inside companies.
Yeah.
But what about their impact outside the company? How are they working with communities?
They've put in over 270,000 employee volunteering hours. So like actual hands-on work, making a difference in communities all over Asia. They've got financial literacy programs for young people. They're supporting social enterprises that are working on some really important social issues. It seems like they're trying to be a part of the communities they serve.
Okay, so they've got good numbers, they're doing good things within the company, and they're giving back to the community. Yeah. But sustainability is hard, right? Especially in a region as diverse as Asia. So what are some of the challenges they talk about in this report?
Well, they're pretty honest about what they're facing. One of the biggest hurdles is those hard to decarbonize sectors like steel and chemicals, industries that are really important for Asia to grow, but they use a lot of carbon. It's hard to balance that with pushing for a low carbon future.
Yeah, it's not like they can just flip a switch and go green overnight. So what are they doing about these tough sectors?
They're looking at all sorts of innovative ways to finance these companies as they try to transition to cleaner technologies. It's a long process and there's no easy answer, but they're trying to come up with new financial tools and partnerships.
It sounds like they're getting their hands dirty with this problem. But don't you need solid data to measure progress and make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Absolutely, that's so important. And DBS is open about data gaps being a big problem, like in agriculture, where it can be really hard to track emissions along the whole supply chain. It's tough to set goals and see if you're having an impact if you don't have a clear picture of what's happening.
So what are they doing about this data problem? Are they just giving up?
Not at all. They're putting resources into building better data collection systems, working with others to create standardized reporting, and pushing for more transparency across the board. It's a work in progress, but they get that reliable data is crucial for any kind of effective action.
This is where I start to get a little skeptical. Are they really doing all this, or are they just talking a good game?
It's easy to be cynical, but their report seems pretty genuine. They're admitting their limitations, pointing out where more work is needed, and showing the specific steps they're taking to address the challenges.
All right, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for now, but let's go deeper. What's their plan for a more sustainable Asia? What's the roadmap?
Well, they're calling it a just transition to a low-carbon economy. It's an idea that's getting a lot of attention globally.
Just transition. I'm not really familiar with that. What does it mean in practice?
It means making sure that as we move towards a sustainable future, nobody gets left behind. Like supporting workers and communities that might be impacted by moving away from things like fossil fuels. It's about balancing environmental goals with social equity.
Yeah, it makes sense. You can't just cut emissions and ignore the human side of things. So how's DBS applying this just transition approach?
Well, they're looking at investing in retraining programs for workers in industries that are changing, supporting new green jobs, and making sure the benefits of a sustainable economy are shared fairly across society.
So they're taking a broad view, understanding that sustainability isn't just about the environment. It's about people and communities and building a future that works for everyone.
Exactly. And they're not just focused on big corporations either. They're putting a lot of effort into helping small and medium-sized enterprises, those SMEs.
Why the focus on SMEs?
Well, SMEs are the foundation of a lot of Asian economies, and they often have a tough time adopting sustainable practices. Maybe they don't have the resources, the knowledge, or even the awareness of how to include sustainability in what they do.
So DBS is stepping in to help.
Yeah. They've created a bunch of tools and resources to help SMEs navigate all the complexity of sustainability. Like, they have this DBS Sustainability Accelerator tool. It helps businesses find areas where they can improve their environmental and social performance.
Okay, so they're offering real support, not just nice words. But how do they know if these efforts are actually working?
They're tracking the impact of everything very carefully, looking at things like how many SMEs are adopting better practices, how much carbon they're reducing through their financing, and what kind of positive social outcomes are happening because of their community programs.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about showing real, tangible results. But, let's be real, there must be some serious obstacles in trying to push sustainability in a region as big and dynamic as Asia.
Oh, definitely. And to their credit, they're not hiding from those challenges in the report. They talk about how hard it is to work with governments that maybe don't see sustainability as a priority, how complex it is to work in markets with different rules and regulations, and how they have to constantly adapt to new social and environmental issues.
So it's like they're walking a tightrope, trying to push for change, while also dealing with all these political, economic, and social realities. How do they even start to address all that?
Well, they really emphasize collaboration and partnership. They know they can't do this alone, so they're working with a lot of different groups, governments, regulators, industry associations, NGOs, even their competitors.
Competitors?
Yeah.
Really? Are they actually willing to share their knowledge and best practices?
It might seem strange, but they see it as necessary for real systemic change. They're part of different industry initiatives that are about developing standards, sharing what works, and raising the bar for sustainability across the whole financial sector.
That's pretty impressive. Putting the greater good ahead of competition. But is it working? Are they actually making any progress?
They have some good examples in the report. For instance, they were really important in creating the ASEAN Green Bond Standards that's helping to standardize green bond issuance across Southeast Asia.
So they're actually influencing policy and market practices on a regional level.
Yeah, they are. And they're also involved in global things like the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, or GFANZ, which brings together financial institutions from all over the world to align their activities with the Paris Agreement goals.
Wow, okay, I'm starting to see how DBS is becoming a leader in sustainable finance. They're not just setting their own targets, they're trying to change the whole system. But let's get back down to earth for a minute. What are they doing to address the specific challenges and opportunities in different Asian countries?
Now, that's a great question, and that's where things get really interesting. They've got a whole bunch of projects and initiatives tailored to the specific needs of different countries across Asia.
Perfect. Let's look at those in our next part. We'll see how DBS is putting their vision into action on the ground, from Singapore to India, China, and beyond.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. Welcome back. So we're talking about DBS's work with small and medium-sized enterprises, those SMEs. What are some of those country-specific initiatives you mentioned?
Well, they're doing some cool stuff in Indonesia.
Sure.
They've teamed up with universities there to give financial literacy training to young entrepreneurs, helping them learn how to manage their money and build sustainable businesses right from the start.
That's smart investing in the next generation of entrepreneurs who understand sustainability from day one. But what about those tougher industries, the ones that are hard to decarbonize? Are they making any progress there?
Yeah, definitely. Their work in India is a good example. They're helping to finance one of India's biggest solar parks, It's going to provide clean energy to tons of homes and businesses, a huge project that shows they're serious about supporting India's move to renewable energy.
That's really encouraging to hear. The report also talked about their focus on nature-positive solutions. That often gets overlooked with all the focus on climate change. But it seems like we can't solve one without the other.
You're right. DBS is starting to think about nature when making financing decisions. Like, they're developing a way to assess risks related to nature in their agricultural loans, especially in Southeast Asia, where deforestation and biodiversity loss are big concerns.
So they're trying to understand how their lending practices might be impacting ecosystems and biodiversity.
Exactly. It's still early days for their nature-positive strategy, but they're realizing that protecting nature isn't just a nice-to-have, it's essential for fighting climate change and making sure economies can thrive in the long run.
It seems like they're approaching this with a good dose of humility, admitting they don't have all the answers, but they're willing to learn and change as they go.
Yeah, I think that's important. And they're not just relying on what they know, they're working with environmental NGOs and scientists to really get a grip on how finance, nature, and climate change all connect.
Collaboration seems to be a big part of their approach. But let's talk about financial inclusion. We touched on their work with migrant workers and the elderly, but are there other examples of how they're making financial services more accessible to people who haven't had access before?
Oh yeah, for sure. Their work in the Philippines stands out. They've got this program that gives microloans and financial training to women entrepreneurs in rural areas, helping them start and grow their own businesses.
So they're seeing that empowering women economically isn't just a social good, it makes good business sense too.
Absolutely. They're also using technology to expand financial inclusion.
Okay, so they're really trying to address those systemic barriers that keep people on the margins from fully participating in the economy. But these are huge, deep-rooted challenges. Are they really making a difference?
Well, real social impact takes time and consistent effort. They're not saying they've solved everything overnight, but they're showing they're in it for the long haul, using their resources and knowledge to create positive change.
And are they open about the difficulties and setbacks they run into along the way?
Yeah, for sure. They talk in the report about the challenges of working in places with different levels of financial literacy, different regulations, different infrastructure. They get that they need to adapt their strategies depending on the context and learn from their experiences, both good and bad.
That's good to hear. So many reports only focus on the positive, and it often feels out of touch with reality. DBS seems to be more grounded, more honest.
I agree. They're showing a realistic picture of how complex sustainability is in Asia. They're not afraid to say when they're still figuring things out, and they emphasize how important it is to keep learning and improving.
It sounds like they're accepting the messy reality of sustainability, understanding that there's no one-size-fits-all solution and that progress can be bumpy. But what about their own operations? Are they practicing what they preach? Are they actually aligning their internal operations with their sustainability goals?
Absolutely. They're not just focusing on external initiatives. They're making a real effort to shrink their own environmental footprint. They've committed to becoming net zero by 2050, and they're actually making progress towards that.
Net zero by 2050. That's a big goal for a financial institution with so many offices and branches across the region.
It is, but they've got a plan. They're making their buildings more energy efficient, switching to renewables, and putting sustainable procurement practices in place.
So they're not just talking about reducing their own carbon emissions, they're actually doing it.
Yeah, and they're going beyond just carbon, too. They're working on reducing waste, saving water, and even building their new offices and branches to green building standards.
So it's a comprehensive approach, covering everything from the energy they use to the materials they buy.
Exactly. And they're getting their employees involved too, encouraging them to be more sustainable in their own lives and become sustainability champions within the company.
That makes a lot of sense. Employees are often the most passionate about driving change inside a company. But let's talk about measuring impact, which is one of the trickiest parts of sustainability. It's easy to set goals and launch initiatives, but how do you know if you're actually making a difference?
That's where it gets really hard. And DBS is upfront about how tough it is to measure the real impact of their sustainability work. They're tracking their progress, but they also admit that the tools we have now have limitations.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about understanding how their actions are contributing to those bigger social and environmental goals.
Right. They're looking at all sorts of indicators, like how many people benefit from their community programs and how much carbon they're avoiding through their financing. But they also say that some things are just hard to measure, like social inclusion or biodiversity protection.
It sounds like they're embracing the complexity of measuring impact, realizing there's no perfect metric or easy answer. But how are they holding themselves accountable? Are they just setting targets and hoping for the best?
Nope, not at all. They've got a strong system in place to oversee their sustainability strategy. They have a dedicated sustainability council at the board level, and they've even linked executive pay to sustainability performance.
So they're literally putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, Exactly. And they're also open to outside scrutiny and benchmarking. They participate in sustainability ratings and indices, which lets them compare themselves to others and see where they can improve.
That kind of transparency and accountability is really impressive. It shows they're serious about making sustainability part of everything they do. But let's look ahead. What trends and challenges are they expecting in the future?
They highlight a few key things that are likely to shape sustainability in Asia. One is the urgency of climate action, especially after 2024 being the hottest year ever recorded globally. They understand that climate change isn't some future threat anymore, it's happening now, and it's having real consequences for businesses and communities.
So they're expecting stricter regulations and a growing need for new climate solutions.
Definitely. And they also think consumer preferences are changing, with people wanting more sustainable products and services. They know that businesses that don't adapt to this are going to be left behind.
So they're trying to stay ahead of the curve, not just react to it. But are they only thinking big picture, or are they considering those more localized challenges that might come up?
They're paying attention to the local context for sure. They know that sustainability challenges and opportunities are different across different countries and communities in Asia.
Can you give some examples of how they're tailoring their approach to fit those local differences?
Sure. In Southeast Asia, they're focusing on deforestation and biodiversity loss, working with companies like palm oil producers to promote more sustainable land use.
So they're going right to the source, working directly with businesses on the ground.
Exactly. And in China, they're focused on air and water issues, supporting projects that promote clean energy, energy efficiency, and better water management.
It sounds like they're taking a multifaceted approach, recognizing that there's no single solution for sustainability in Asia.
You got it. They're embracing the region's diversity and adjusting their strategies to meet the specific challenges and opportunities in each country.
This has been a really insightful look at how DBS is approaching sustainability in Asia. But let's bring it back to our listeners. What are the main things they should take away from all this?
I think the most important thing is that sustainability isn't just about doing good, it's about doing good business. DBS is showing that making sustainability a core part of your business strategy is both the right thing to do and the smart thing to do.
And they're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it, both inside and outside the company.
Exactly. They're setting ambitious goals, taking action, and being open about the challenges they face.
This has been a fascinating look at DBS's sustainability efforts. But before we move on, I want to remind our listeners that if you're thinking about your own sustainability journey, or if you need some expert help navigating sustainable finance, check out Profitable Earth Consulting Services.
They can help you create a sustainability strategy that works for your business and makes a positive impact.
Right. That's it for this part of our deep dive.
Wow, we've really covered a lot about DBS's 2024 Sustainability Report.
We have. And I feel like there's even more to explore. We've seen so many interesting things they're doing.
And a lot of tough questions come up too.
For sure. It's obvious that DBS is facing some really complicated challenges, but what really stands out to me is how open they are about those challenges. They're not pretending it's easy, and that actually gives me more confidence that they're serious about making a difference.
I see what you mean. That transparency helps build trust. That's super important when you're talking about something as, well, multifaceted as sustainability.
Yeah, good point. Speaking of tricky topics, I'm wondering how DBS is dealing with all the changes happening in ESG investing. There's been a lot of back and forth about ESG lately. Some people are even pushing back against it.
You're right, there has been. And DBS actually addresses this in their report.
Yep.
They say that ESG investing has gotten really complicated and that we need more clarity and standards when it comes to measuring and reporting ESG performance.
So they're not just jumping on the ESG bandwagon without thinking it through.
No, not at all. They're being careful and thoughtful. They understand that ESG isn't some magic solution. It's a tool that has to be used in the right way.
And are they involved in discussions about how to improve ESG frameworks and how to measure it?
Definitely. They're part of industry groups and working with regulators to help shape the future of ESG investing. They see it as a really important part of making sustainable finance work.
Okay, so they're committed to doing ESG the right way, not just for show. But let's take a step back for a second and think about the big picture. What's your overall impression of this report? Is DBS really doing what they say they're doing when it comes to sustainability?
From what I see in the report, yeah, I think they're making a real effort to make sustainability a core part of who they are. They're backing up their promises with real actions, they're tracking their progress, and they're holding themselves accountable.
And they're honest about the challenges they're facing and where they still need to improve.
Exactly. It's not all perfect, but they're acknowledging the difficulties and embracing the process. I think that's more inspiring than just trying to look good.
I agree with you there. But what does all this mean for everyday people? Why should someone who isn't a sustainability expert or a financial analyst care about what DBS is doing?
That's a good question. I think we have to remember that financial institutions like DBS have a big influence on the world. The decisions they make about where to put their money, who to lend to, what projects to support it all, has an impact on the economy and society as a whole.
So they have a responsibility to use that influence for good.
For sure. And I think DBS is taking that responsibility seriously. Their focus on sustainability shows that they're moving towards a more conscious and responsible way of doing business, one that understands how business, society, and the environment are all connected.
It's not just about making as much money as possible anymore, it's about creating value for everyone involved.
Exactly. And I think that idea goes beyond just the financial world. It's something we can all relate to, no matter what we do or where we live.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will remember?
I hope they'll feel a sense of optimism and that they can make a difference. DBS's report shows that positive change is possible, even when we face huge challenges. It proves that businesses can be a force for good, and that our individual actions, even small ones, can add up and create a more sustainable and fair future.
It reminds us that we all have a part to play in building the world we want to live in. Well, this has been a really eye-opening look at DBS's 2024 Sustainability Report. Thanks so much for sharing your insights.
My pleasure. It's been great talking about this.
And for our listeners, if you're feeling inspired to step up your own sustainability game, don't forget to check out Profitable Earth Consulting Services. They can help you turn your sustainability goals into reality. That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.